right away.
Okay, well, there.
Welcome to the lounge, everybody, the 85th edition. I'm Travis Kriens. We have David Schottenkirk. We have Nathan Stacken. We have Charlie Hildebrand. We are awaiting the Drue appearance, his quarterly appearance. And Marcus Traxler, MIA, he is covering the riots at Dinkytown because of the big brown jug is back in town for its once-in-a-decade appearance.
3 times 60.
So it's a big deal there. It's like an eclipse, like a lunar eclipse, once in a generation. So I got the football here we're watching, but first the baseball playoffs are set, and they begin here in a matter of hours. Nathan Stacken, are you awake?
I'm awake. I'm alive.
Because you said 6 months ago during our baseball preview in early April to wake your ass up when September ended and the playoffs were ready. Well, the playoffs are here. Do you give a shit?
I do, because the Royals and the Pirates are both in the postseason. I am extremely excited for the possibility of a Kansas City-Pittsburgh World Series, in which I would watch every single moment of that from start to finish. Highly unlikely it's going to happen, but I am ready for the postseason. Bring on baseball.
Do you know what you said 6 months ago? I asked you what you were interested in this baseball season. What did you say?
Probably absolutely nothing. Wake me up when September.
No. You said you were interested in one team.
The Pirates?
You said you were interested in the Pirates, and you said that you thought they could compete with the Cardinals, which they did up until the final day. And you were also interested in the Dodgers and instant replay. So you were correct there. Mr. Schottenkirk, the playoffs are upon us here. Is this a pretty good playoff field, or is this a top-heavy field? Are there a lot of teams here that have a chance, or what's the deal?
I think it's pretty top-heavy, to be honest with you here. But there's 2 teams in the National League, in my opinion, that have any chance. Dodgers and Nats. The Cards got in one of the division. I don't think they have enough depth pitching-wise. Bullpen's been so-so. Offense has been very meager this year. It would be pretty. I won't go stunned, but I'll be very surprised if we don't see Dodgers, Nationals, and NLCS. AL is a little bit more wide open, in my opinion. If Oakland wins that wildcard game, look out. I know they've struggled massively, but that rotation, they could just get hot at the right time. They've played LA pretty well this year. It's very, very likely, in my opinion, that they could give LA a series and maybe even win that one. I like Detroit over Baltimore. I think the pitching's coming around. Offense is still there. I think Baltimore doesn't have enough top-end guys. I love Baltimore's bullpen. Still don't think that's enough, though. So I think LA does survive. If Oakland wins, I pick KC because I don't want to see it. But if Oakland wins that game, look out. There could be a very trendy sleeper. LA, Detroit in the ALCS, and I took the Dodgers over the Tigers in, I think, 6 games in the World Series.
Mr. Hildebrand, how do you see these playoffs? Is there any team that piques your interest?
I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I couldn't hear anything that Schottenkirk said. So if I repeat anything he says, I will take full responsibility for that. I want to see how the Orioles do. I want to see if the A's, even though they've slumped dramatically, can maybe do something. But mostly I would just want to see how Kershaw pitches in the playoffs because he's looked lights out all year and has had one of – I mean, I don't know where you're going to quantify it, top whatever, but he's had one of the, whether it's top 5, top 10, top 15, he's had one of the best pitching years ever, and I want to see if he can do it in the playoffs when it really matters.
If you wanted to make the case that he's had the best year in the last 10 years, I think you're on track. If you want to say he's had one of the best years in the last 20, he's definitely in the conversation there. Greg Maddux in the mid-'90s had 2 unbelievable years. Pedro Martinez there, 99-2000, had back-to-back unbelievable years. So he's definitely in that conversation. He's definitely your Cy Young. He's probably your MVP. 4 straight years, leader of baseball in ERA, never been done. Unbelievable. Somehow doesn't get more attention. And you have Cardinals, Dodgers, as Mr. Nike Drue joins the program. Yes.
His court-ordered appearance.
Very good. The quarterly appearance of Drue on here as often as Buccaneers win games. So
right.
So every time they win a game this year, he'll be on the show. So he'll be on the show at least one more time this year.
3 times.
3 times. There you go. You have Kershaw and Wainwright in Game 1. Wainwright almost, he's going to have a full week and a half. He's going to have a long time off here. But it's just more absurd to think that Wainwright started the All-Star game over Kershaw, since Kershaw put together one of the great years of the last 20 years. Mr. Amon, what are your thoughts here on the playoffs? I asked Schottenkirk if he thought this was a top-heavy year. He said National League probably so, American League more wide open. Playoffs 2014, who do you like?
I don't think you should discredit these kind of teams that are entering the playoffs sort of, I guess, not hot. You know what I mean? I still like teams like Detroit and Oakland a lot. Yeah, Detroit and Oakland in particular. This is all about pitching. I'm pretty sure that the average run scored in these playoffs is going to be like 4 runs a game. So it's not going to be very high-powered in that regard. But those are teams that have 3 or 4 guys that can easily win every time they're out. So I like clubs like Detroit and Oakland. But the thing with Oakland is, it's a total coin flip game. This is the way these play-in games are. They're not very predictable. So who knows if Oakland's even in the picture after 2 days from now.
Do you prefer, a show of hands, who prefers the playoff cliche of, starters, good starters, lower scoring games, rather than a 6-5 game, an 8-7 game? Who prefers the great pitching over the hitting? I prefer the pitching. Anybody else prefer the...
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Stacken or Hildebrand, do you prefer the hitting?
I'm okay with a 2-1, 3-2 game every once in a while, but at least get a fairly high-scoring game in there. I like watching Clayton Kershaw dominate. I like watching James Shields do his thing, and Adam Wainwright, all these guys. But I do like to see some runs be scored rather than just see batters go up to the plate and fail miserably every time.
Not a baseball traditionalist, so I guess I would just say more runs. Certainly if it's a really special pitching duel, those are fun to see also. But if push comes to shove, I go with runs over defense in most sports.
It seemed like when Oakland made those trades, Samardzija 3-4 weeks before the deadline, Lester at the deadline, those guys have done fine. They got rid of Cespedes. They hit a wall. They quit scoring runs. If they do not make that trade, where are they at right now? Are they in that same position, high 80s in the wins, or do they have 94, 95 wins here without those guys?
I think there's been way too much has been said about what losing Cespedes did to them. I think what happened to Oakland was their players stopped playing well for a couple months straight. Cespedes is, as far as OPS goes, he had some power and he's got a good arm, but he's not like a guy who's going to hit third for you and be your star offensive player. He had plenty of flaws. He's actually been worse since his rookie season. So, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of the mind that who you are really reveals itself over 162 games, and then maybe Oakland never was a 100-win team. But to put it all on Cespedes for their spiral, I think that's sort of misdirected.
You would assume it's unlikely Lester signs with Oakland since he's going to get a boatload of money here this offseason. And when the trade happened, we were talking, and it was basically, well, does Oakland do they have to make the World Series here for this trade to pay off in the end? Since this is a 2-3 month rental. Now that they're in this one-game playoff on the road. Does this change at all? Do they still have to make the World Series, bringing in Lester and Samardzija, given all they gave up?
Yeah, I think no matter what.
Answer for me, yeah.
Okay, David.
Longer answer for me. I think making that move, even though it hasn't panned out as well as they thought it would, just being in this spot with the wild card game here. I think still, they have to make a run. Otherwise, everyone's going to kind of all disappointment, letdown, whatever. But like I alluded to earlier, if they get past Kansas City, I'm really, 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 anxious to see what they can do. So I think they can get rolling, but it's just a matter of getting that first one out of the way.
How important is this one-game playoff in the AL for Leicester and for Shields? Both are free agents at the end of this year, both unlikely to sign with the teams they're currently at. Is this a case where if they can win this game, if they can make a deep run to the LCS and they can have 3 or 4 just unbelievable 7, 8, 9 inning starts, that they can raise their pay from, let's say they want $150 million, to say if they just go on a hell of a run here, they can ask for $180 to $200 million? Is that much on the line here, or do you take their body of work, which has been great over the last couple of years, compared to a handful of starts? Will people overrate what they do here in the postseason, good or bad?
I would hope not. I think baseball people are smarter than that at the highest levels. But if you see one of them, just say one of the teams makes the World Series and one of those guys dominates all the way through, they might get an extra year, or they might get an extra, million or two a year just tacked on and say, hey, I can do this in the playoffs if we get there. I think Lester's going to get paid super well regardless of what happens. I think there's a lot more on the line for Shields in that game and going forward if they advance.
Was it Lester or Lackey that seemed like he would go back to Boston after being traded?
Lester.
Okay, so I think it speaks for itself. I don't think it doesn't really matter what Lester does. He's going to go back to Boston, or he's more likely to sign with Boston in the offseason.
The Cubs.
Yeah, I would say Boston is not probably in your top 3.
Really?
Cubs, Yankees, I think Dodgers would be a good top 3.
There's probably only
Boston
5
what he originally
teams that
said.
would even be willing to throw out the money.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's a very small pool of teams that will be able to afford him, and what his asking price will be. So David says he likes the Dodgers over the Tigers in the World Series. Mr. Stacken, what would you like for your? It's not going to be Kansas City, Pittsburgh.
I know you're just raining on my parade. That's what I would love to see.
They'll both be done playing here in about 5 hours, so it ain't gonna happen. I don't know what I listened back to some of the tapes from 6 months ago. I don't know what your World Series prediction was. I'm sure Tampa Bay was in there somewhere.
I had said the Dodgers were going to win it all. I think it was going to be a Dodgers-Angels World Series, so that's what I will stick with an LA series. I do think that Baltimore, we don't give them enough credit because everyone said, okay, Baltimore's leading the AL East come All-Star break, but then they have to play 20 or 30 of their next 40 games against teams with above 500 records, and they breezed through that. That's where they really started to get on a roll and get through the division. So I think they clinched the AL East convincingly. I think they're going to take out Detroit. Detroit, to me, just a little too inconsistent, and I am a believer in Baltimore. So I will say Baltimore against Anaheim, and I'll take Anaheim to get out of the AL. And the NL, I will take the Pirates to win their wild card game over the Giants, and they'll eventually lose to the Nationals. Is that who they? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take the Nationals to win. Kind of take Washington and LA in the NLCS. I will take the Dodgers to get out of that. And unfortunately, perhaps for baseball, I think we're going to see an all SoCal World Series with the Dodgers winning it.
We can have World Series games in daylight. How about that? And keep the lights off. How about that? Mr. Amon, who will Tampa Bay play in the World Series?
Before I throw out any playoff predictions, can I ask what the Yankees hat? What is?
I don't know. I've been doing a different hat. This might be Ichiro's last game, so future Hall of Famer. Wanted to pay my respects. I've been wearing a different hat for a few months now, and I have not worn this hat. So I thought, well, if this was Hiroki Kuroda's last day in pinstripes, I figured may as well give Kuroda and Ichiro the Asian connection, their due respect for time well served. So that is my explanation for a Yankee hat.
Very good. Very good.
Okay.
For me, I have absolutely no idea about the playoffs. I pretty much only think pretty much think there's only one team that really doesn't have a shot at winning the World Series. That's Kansas City. Then I think your other team after that's going to be Pittsburgh. So now you're talking about 7 teams that I think have a chance to actually win the entire World Series. So I have no idea. I'm going to go with Dodgers in the World Series. But you can't count out Washington. You can't count out a team like San Francisco. They're always, whenever they're in the playoffs, their pitching's always outstanding. But in the AL, I think Oakland beats Baltimore.
They would play the Angels, or in the LCS
that
here.
Would be possible.
Baltimore
LCS?
Angels LCS. You got Detroit and Baltimore here. You got your wild card winner versus the Angels.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go Dodgers over Oakland in a like a SoCal showdown.
Well done, Mr. Hildebrand. Will you deviate from the script here? We have a lot of West Coast teams getting a lot of love. In the preview show, you said your two surprise teams were Baltimore and Kansas City, even though I said those two teams both finished over 500 the season before. Kansas City makes the playoffs for the first time in nearly 30 years, and Baltimore wins the division for the first time in 17 years or so. So a Baltimore-Kansas City final. What do we got?
I'm going to go. I would like to see Drue's of Oakland and Los Angeles. I'm going to go with it's going to be the Dodgers against the Orioles, though, and with the Dodgers winning. And Kershaw having a Sandy Koufax-esque playoff run.
Going to withhold judgment on his status for the week until they see him tomorrow.
Oh boy, I went to Dodgers, Oakland about a couple months ago. I went Dodgers, Yankees at the beginning of the year. I'll go Dodgers, Anaheim, as everybody else is. And I'll say the Dodgers win. I'm hoping for a Baltimore versus Angels AL. And a Washington Dodgers NL, so you have the two Washington area teams, and you have the two LA-based teams, and they're both going up against each other. I think that's an interesting dynamic and storyline.
Yeah, let me ask you about that. Because what do you think baseball would prefer, a SoCal World Series or a Beltway World Series?
They would prefer Dodgers Angels over Orioles Nationals. They could maybe figure that TV contract out. Winner of the World Series gets the damn contract and figure that mess out. So you got some new teams in there. Baltimore, you got the Expos in there. We all like it when the Expos get into the mix here. Was there any added excitement here for you the last week with this added playoff? Yet again, they've been fortunate to have this second playoff come into effect. Most of the time the last couple of years, you had St. Louis and the Braves there. 2 years ago, where the Braves, I think, had a 7, 8, 9 game better record than St. Louis, but ended up losing that one-game playoff. But baseball, they've been fortunate here where this second wild card race has come down to the final day or two of the season. Has your opinion changed on the second wild card, Mr. Amon?
I'm fine with it. I think it's mostly. I'm fine with the winner take all just to get into the to get to the second wild card thing. I'm all for it. Baseball is the one sport where they can pull this off. You know, obviously you can't play any tiebreaker games in the NFL. NBA, not really either. I like the way that baseball sort of embraces this. I don't think you should do any sort of tiebreaker. Well, how did you fare heads up during the regular season? Play it on the field. That's the way to do it.
Your award winners, I think everybody would agree Mike Trout will win his first MVP, I believe. We have Stanton, a contender, missing the last couple of weeks because he got hit in the face with a baseball. That traveled very fast, so he could not play. What a puss. A National League here. A lot of people like Kershaw. I like Kershaw to win the award. Mr. Hildebrand, do you have any qualms of having a pitcher win the National League MVP here for the first time in about 40 years?
A lot of people don't like it. I don't have any problem with it. Like I said, I'm not as much of a baseball traditionalist as some people. No problem by me, but I get why some people don't like it.
Mr. Schottenkirk, who is your National League MVP?
I think it has to be Kershaw. I don't necessarily like it per se, but I understand in a year like this when he's been so dominant and there wasn't one or two runaway guys, Stanton getting hurt didn't really help his cause. The fact that they were, multiple games under 502 was not great. There's a couple other candidates. For me, if it was somebody other than Kershaw, I would go Andrew McCutchen, believe it or not. I think impact-wise, he's been hot down the stretch, and just overall, he missed a few weeks, or a week anyways, and that kind of derailed his campaign here in September. But I think Kershaw is going to be the landslide winner, and I'm not that upset about it.
Nathan,
I'm fine with the pitcher. I'm fine with the pitcher winning MVP, even though it's a Cy Young. It's weird to me what seems to be required for a pitcher to win the MVP. It's like, well, you can't lose more than like 4 games, and you have to win definitely over 20. I mean, I just think of somebody like Pedro in 2000 who didn't win the MVP when he was so clearly the best player in baseball. Didn't win the MVP, and I think it was because the amount of wins wasn't quite there, or you didn't throw 245 innings. So, but the Kershaw thing's going to be cool because it's he's like right at 200 innings pitched, but those innings were so fantastic that I think we're in a position where people are like, all right, let's give this guy some credit, and I don't think it's it's maybe a little bit of a body of work kind of MVP because of the 4 straight ERA titles, but regardless, he was the best player, so he should get it.
Flip side of that coin real quick, though. Think about it, and this is kind of old school or whatever, but how many starts did he have this year? 28, 29, somewhere in there?
He missed about 5 starts there in the first month. Yeah.
So right, just right around 30 starts then. But think about it that way. You get a guy like McCutchen or a guy like anybody that wins the MVP in a normal year plays 150 or 155 games a year. If they're out there every day, defense, batting, whatever. And I know that Kershaw's numbers are out of this world, but it all comes back to, for me, 2 things. The pitchers have their own award, and they're out there 1 out of every 5 days. That's not, most valuable is somebody that's there every day, and that's, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's why the Cy Young was created, the best pitcher and most valuable player, not pitcher. But like I said, I don't have a huge issue with it, but if you want to go old school look at it, that's exactly why people have a massive issue with it.
It's pretty much a case of, like you mentioned, do you want a player, an everyday player, that has a handful of at-bats and a handful of plays in the field every day, or do you want a pitcher who has, not completely 100% control of what's going on out there, but as much control as anybody in the game when he's out there once a week, twice a week. So it's, you're just comparing what do you prefer. So, Kershaw, a likely candidate here for your MVP.
Travis,
yeah.
just quickly here. I mean, I don't have an issue with Kershaw winning the MVP either. He was completely dominant this year. The only issue I think you have is that the NL is, I think, a little easier to pitch in than the AL because you get to face a batter once every 9th hitter. So
Pitcher.
that is pitcher. I'm sorry.
You face a batter 8 out of
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been to pitcher once every 9 hitters. I think that is a definite argument that can be made against Kershaw, and I agree with what Schottenkirk said. Had McCutchen not missed any time, had Stanton not missed the last couple of weeks, I would probably vote for either of those 2 players over Kershaw. But because they missed some time, and I know Kershaw missed the first few starts of the year too, but I would probably lean Kershaw.
Is it as simple as if Stanton is on a winning team or a playoff team, he wins the award?
Yes.
Yeah, 100% yes.
And he did. I do not believe he missed a single game before those last 2 weeks. So I would say, and I don't, if you're going to give Stanton the award, I would say these last 2 weeks do not matter in that case, since your top 3 candidates all miss some time. And I would say if you think Stanton's the guy, these last 2 weeks should not make a difference here as far as who you think your MVP should be. Is this a fairly boring year as far as awards go, since we pretty much know who the guy is? There's really no debate to it. There's no surprise here.
Well, in those 2 races, but I think the American League Cy Young is quite interesting. But AL MVP is set in stone. NL MVP seems to be Cy Young, obviously. But the most interesting is definitely that AL Cy Young.
I would say Felix Hernandez probably will win it. He wins the ERA title in the American League. Corey Kluber is your second guy for Cleveland. So would anybody prefer Kluber? You can make the case. You can make the argument. Anybody on Kluber over Hernandez?
I know Drue might be here real quick. We talked about it a few nights ago in our little chat, and looking at the numbers and really, delving in, because I was steadfast that Felix was definitely deserving and #1 guy, and it wasn't even close. But really, digging into the numbers, like I said, it's a hell of a lot closer than I thought it was. I would still give it to Felix, obviously, ERA title, whatever. But Kluber had, in a normal year or any other year in the last couple years, anyways, he'd be the guy. He put up an astounding numbers for a guy that really hadn't done much and he's 27, 28 years old.
Mr. Rahman, Yes.
I'm giving Felix a little bit of an edge. But their numbers, they were pretty parallel. The one thing that Kluber might get some votes on is the fact he had some more wins than Felix did. Felix gets 2 runs a game, so it's tough to win more than 15 games when Seattle's offense is still just not quite playoff caliber. So I'd go for Felix, and I'm fascinated to think what Felix Hernandez would do in the NL if he could be, Kershaw-like. But anyway, Felix is my guy in the AL. And you know what? If Chris Sale could have just got 25, 30 more innings, then it's his.
I do like Chris Sale. So my pick for AL Cy Young the last 2 years, and he will be my pick next year, 6 months from the season. So
wow.
Yes. And you ask what Felix Hernandez would do if he was in the NL? He would hit at least 170, if not more. He would hit about 30 points lower than Hicks, is what he would hit. That was my prediction.
Ouch.
Ouch is correct. Drue Amon made predictions at the beginning of the season. Records. You hit on one team exactly. Do you know what team? I know you were tracking this on your wall. If you would move your camera to another wall, I'm sure you would see a big-ass marker and a big-ass poster of these standings and such. Do you know which team you correctly predicted?
I was one off with Minnesota. They had to win today.
Yes. You were one off. You were one off with what was that?
AL or NL?
The National League.
St. Louis.
San Francisco. You correctly predicted an 88-74 record. I know you go much like Stacken and Traxler do with the NFL game by game. You went game by game, all 700,000 games of an MLB season, win by win. It was very impressive.
Goddamn right.
You had the Giants beating the Dodgers on a Tuesday in June, which a lot of people did not have, so I think that's where you really came through with that 88-win prediction. As you mentioned, you were one away from a 71-win season for the Twins. You were also one away.
We thought they were 5 wins better at the beginning of the year, you and me. It turns out they were 4 games.
It's very close. It was very close. You were 2 off on Washington. You were 1 off on Detroit. You were 2 off on the White Sox, and you were also 2 off on, I think I said Washington. So solid predictions by you. You were also a game off on the Padres. So not bad.
Good stuff.
A half dozen or so teams.
Totally whiffed on Tampa for one. So anyway.
Many people did. Many people did.
Mm-hmm.
wrapping up the Twins season, they were 70-92, 4 straight 98-loss seasons. I'm a whole hell of a lot more excited about the final part of this season and next season. Their offense was outstanding this final month and final 2 months. It seems like they have a lot more pieces now. You can say, okay, Kyle Gibson, we know what you are. Hopefully you get a little bit better. He pitched great today. We know you're going to be around for the next 4 or 5 years. Phil Hughes, you're probably going to be around the next 2, 3, 4 years. Ricky Nolasco pitched a whole hell of a lot better the last month. Hopefully that continues. He's going to be around the next 3 years. So you have 3 guys in the rotation that are decent when pitching well. You know they're going to be there. The offense, you got Santana, you got Vargas. Mauer hit 307 in the last 2 months of the season, so he's not going to get traded, according to Stack and Report, so that's a shame.
Yeah.
But it seems like you have got guys now, Mr. Amon. You have got guys that we know are good, and the 2 big guys, Sano and Buxton, still not up. So a promising future for Dan Santana and crew.
There's going to be a lot of questions with that starting rotation probably entering next season. I don't want them to go out and pick up a veteran guy, especially if it's going to be a Ricky Nolasco clone. Their defense is not good. Hopefully, but I don't really know what they do about it. I think they just sort of go a calendar year, maybe pick up a veteran-type player that's not going to be a huge impact. And, keep in mind, entering this week, this was a team that was right in the race for the worst record in the majors, and they played pretty well the last week. So, is this team on the up and up? I think incrementally, but if we're going to be talking about the Twins, being a surprise team next year, I think that's getting a little ahead of yourself. But yeah, you're right. There's some P. Santana was absolutely phenomenal. He might be a guy that can finally take the shortstop position for a little while. And him and Dozier, very good middle infield. But they got a lot of issues.
2015 World Series or bust?
Yeah. Like 19 World Series or bust. It's going to be a while.
2015, eighth pick in the draft or bust, I think. I would say
the thing is, one of their biggest problems, outfield defense, could very quickly become a strength if Byron Buxton stays healthy and shows that kind of 5-tool skill set, and then they bring him up by July 1. And then you're looking at an outfield that's not going to be bad. They have a problem where they have these young hitters who are good offensive players, can't play defense. So they need to figure out what they're going to do with Oswaldo Arcia. I think Kenneth Vargas should probably spend some time in AAA next year.
No.
Oh yeah. And I don't know. Maybe they're another few wins better, but as far as them, turning into a Kansas City Royals type, I don't see that.
So you would put Oswaldo Arcia in that type of a poor defensive player.
Poor defensive player, but it would be a very good DH. He only cares about hitting anyway. You can tell.
Aaron Hicks will get a chance at center field for the 3rd straight year. Very good. In the field, fast, good arm, good glove. If you can just hit 240, for Christ's sake, just fucking hit 240. For Christ's fucking sakes, instead of 198. Look, it's not that hard.
Look, if it turns out that he can't be a regular everyday player, I still think he can be a pretty good platoon guy, hitting lefties, playing a corner outfield spot. I really don't think they should cut him loose. At least not yet.
Worst case scenario, he's your 4th outfielder on the bench that comes in for Arcia in the 8th inning to play defense. That left field position is open. I believe they will go on the free agent market to fill
Michael
that.
Kadire?
What are we talking about here? I'm Michael. I'm the Twins. You're Michael Kadyr's agent. What are the numbers and the figures here? You want Kadir at the Twins?
I don't hate that idea. I don't think they should clog up anything with veteran players that are only going to be around for a year or two. But Kadir would be one guy that would make sense.
I do not feel he will replicate his numbers with Colorado the last couple of years since they were outside of the norm for him in his career. But if he could come back and do what he's done for the Twins when he was with the Twins the last handful of years, hit 270, hit 280, hit 20 home runs, drive in 80 runs, do that would be fine with me. To give him a 2 or 3 year deal, he is 36.
I want to see him get rid of a lot of players on the 40-man roster.
The Doug Berniers, they wanted to get a look at Chris Herman because he had 300.
The one thing about the Twins
out. Yes.
The one thing about the Twins that didn't really get talked a lot about the second half of the year was their bullpen was really not very good. I think they really got to get rid of people like Dunsing, Jared Burton. Man. I mean, even somebody like Casey Fiend really struggled.
You have Nick Burdi. He will be up next year. I am excited for this. Your next closer for the Twins, a 100-mile-per-hour flame fucking thrower. This motherfucker here. This guy. This should be fun to watch. You got Lester Oliveros.
What has happened to this show? What has happened to this show?
I don't know. Lester Oliveros, quality stuff.
Caleb Thielbar.
You can go to the St. Paul Saints for all I care. The bullpen was good to begin the year. Struggled at the end there. Perkins probably gets his stuff figured out because he did not look good the last couple weeks. So get that arm figured out there. So I'm pretty excited for the Twin season here coming up, and only a few short months away. I wish this was hockey season to where there was a 2-week off season, so baseball would be going on.
But by the way, can we get a hockey preview in next week's show? The puck drops on the season, I believe, Tuesday. Tuesday? What's the 9th?
One of those. We can do it. One of those 5-second soccer preview style ones, I suppose.
We could do it. Yeah. We could see who Pittsburgh and Detroit will play in the Stanley Cup when they meet meet in the finals.
Conference finals. They can't meet in the Stanley Cup anymore.
Yeah, we'll figure out who they will meet in the Stanley Cup finals.
Oh, okay.
And
how do we feel about the Hurricane?
You give me 10 minutes. Me and Traxler we'll talk hockey.
I had no idea the University of Miami had hockey.
You didn't?
When did this happen?
Huntsville has a hockey team?
Well, they should.
College is just throwing away money now.
I put the question out there, Santana and Mauer, home runs, RBIs, average, on-base slugging, who ends up leading what category? Santana at a better average by approximately 30-40 points. On-base percentage went to Mr. Mauer by a whopping 9 points. Slugging percentage, Mr. Dan Santana, 5'6". Dan Santana had a slugging percentage 100 points better than Mauer, and he also had 3 more home runs. Mauer had 15 RBIs. So Santana takes the series in 5, 3 games to 2. So if you can extrapolate that over an entire...
Travis, the BIP.
The BIP was 408. So it never fell, though. It was always above 400.
Always there. The entire year, there was not 1 week where he didn't have like 5 hits.
Unbelievable.
So I don't know. We need to figure out who Dan Santana's going to be. When its BIP drops into the 330s, he's going to be a good player. He's going to be good. He's not going to be an outstanding player like he was his rookie year. He was very good. I give him a lot of credit.
It would be nice to see Brian Dozier not go for like 1 for 30 multiple times. It would be nice to see him hit like 260 instead of 235. We'll see if that power lasts, but a decision has to be made here on a long-term deal for Dozier, and maybe wait 1 more year or a half a season to see if this continues.
I think his batting average was, I think it might have been exactly the same as last year, like 244, 245. I don't know. I think we might know who Brian Dozier is.
I gotta say one more year. One more year.
I think he's a streaky hitter, and you can probably pencil in 16 homers, maybe 20, 25 stolen bases. Yeah, I would be fine if they extended him. I'll say that.
That would be interesting. A borderline all-star, second base, AL. College football, Mr. Hildebrand. What is the headline coming out of this week of college football?
That next week, this upcoming week, should be a lot more fun than this past one.
There we go.
Brady Hoke's not going to be hired or be employed by the University of Michigan next year.
Minnesota, Mr. Stacken.
I was just going to say, at least he outlasted Charlie Weiss at Kansas.
Ouch, that hurts. But at least Charlie Weiss is probably getting paid more than
Charlie Weiss is the best agent in the history of anything ever. My new goal in life is to have a job where I can have an agent and hire Charlie Weiss's agent for myself.
Yeah, he is out at Kansas. Couldn't turn that program around. Stunning enough. Minnesota defeated Michigan 30-14. How the hell did this happen?
No idea.
Mr. Schottenkirk, what happened here?
Well, Trax is probably still coming off his drunkenness last night in the victory, but the worst Michigan team that I've probably ever seen, and it just proved yesterday that it looked like a complete role reversal. We're used to seeing Minnesota look as inept as Michigan did. The defense is supposed to be still decent. They weren't able to stop the run at all. Leidner passed a little bit on them. It really looked to me, middle of the third quarter, that Michigan just flat out quit. You know, it was 30-14, whatever it was the final. You could just tell that pick six was over. Hope's looking around on the sideline. He's dicking around with his quarterback. They should have never been in there, concussed. It's like, I get that guy out of there. Ed Cunningham, I think, was on the call, and he was just freaking out in the booth, and he was 100% correct that Morris should have never went back in the game. I'm kind of surprised Hope didn't get fired last night or this morning. I really am. That was embarrassing. They got ripped by Utah last week. A couple weeks ago, Notre Dame 31-0. They actually didn't play bad in that game, but still 2-3. It's, I think, the first time in their program's history they have 3 losses before October. It says a lot. I'm firmly on the bandwagon. Jim Harbaugh will be your next Michigan coach.
I believe there's video out there. Jim Harbaugh, Michigan coach, at the during that college football preview show. So we'll try to dig that up. Penn State lost somehow at home to Northwestern. So Maryland here. Maryland. Yes.
It's Will Rottler's fault.
Will Rottler's fault for coaching them up wrong. Maryland's dreams here at the top of the East will end next week versus Ohio State. Ohio State going on the road. Maryland, any sniffing around this one here? You smell something?
I smell that Ohio State's going to win handily over Maryland.
Son of a gun, Charlie. Son of a gun.
I'm sick of picking Maryland games in the college pick'em every week.
I agree.
That was part of the agreement. That was part of their Big Ten agreement. You must be in the pick'em. My favorite stat from Minnesota is they had 160 more passing yards versus Michigan than they did the previous week, but they only had 167 yards passing versus Michigan. No. The drive to 1,000 yards, can it be done? Can they eclipse the magical number of 1,000 passing yards on the season? That remains to be seen, and that's in some serious goddamn jeopardy here.
They might need to make the Big Ten title game to get that 14th regular season game to get to 1,000 passing yards.
The stupid thing
won't happen.
Stupid thing is, too, that they have weapons. Max Williams is an absolute animal. Donovan Jones has not been used correctly. He's an absolute beast on the outside. There's weapons there. They just need to find a quarterback that doesn't have his head firmly planted up his own ass.
UCLA, I thought they'd get their asses handed to them by Arizona State, but they played the backup quarterback, and their defense gave up 70 touchdowns. So when you give up 70 touchdowns in a game, that's not good. UCLA, their most impressive performance by far. They have Utah next week before a dandy of a matchup against Oregon at home in the Rose Bowl. Mr. Schottenkirk, your team looked good this past week. Do you feel more positive about them going forward? Because they have looked like dog shit before Thursday.
One thing, UCLA is not my team. They're my team this year. They're not technically my team, but yeah, all right. Anyways, they look really good. They still haven't played their best game. Arizona State, the score kind of got out of hand, and they didn't really dominate that. The score was indicative of. But they're getting better.
The first half was close.
Yeah, I think they were up by 10.5. Yeah, it was a lot closer than what it was. They're getting better every week. Winning against Texas with their backup, fucking Neuheisel's kid in there at the end of the year was going to prove massive because that's a lot. That would have been a loss otherwise. We pulled that one out of his ass. I think, like I said, they're getting better matchup-wise. Utah next week could be an interesting game. They could be looking ahead to Oregon. Utah just blew their load yesterday against Washington State. That was miserable. That was just absolute abysmal. I watched that in that game. I could not believe that they found a way to lose that. But I think setting up in a couple of weeks, UCLA, Oregon. I said before the season, I think UCLA was going to win the regular season game, and Oregon was going to come back and win the Pac-12 title game. I still think that holds true. I think Hundley is healthy. He's getting better. Defense looks all right. And in the Rose Bowl, I think they got a little bit of magic. I love what Moore's been doing with their physicality. I think they're set up to be just all right, even though they haven't played great just yet.
Talk to me more about this.
Oregon Blue, it's low.
Yes. Load. Talk to me about this Memphis Tiger squad. They gave UCLA a game. They beat Austin Peay. That's a big win. You've got them for 8 wins here.
Yes, I do.
I was surprised by this. They're at Cincinnati next week. That seems like a big goddamn.
That's a loss.
It's a loss. So we're going 2-3, and we're winning 6 of our last 7.
Look at the schedule. There's nobody after Cincy. The schedule's brutal. Offensive and defensive line is super, super underrated. They stuck right with UCLA. That was a 1-touchdown game. They played decently well, forced some turnovers in Ole Miss, 24-3. Didn't look as as good as it was late. Traxxer put up that they were up 7-3 with only like 10 minutes left or what the hell ever. Offensive weapons. The coach is not coming to me right now. I think it starts with a P. Is very, very sneaky under the radar. He's going to be on the national scene real quickly for a bigger job. I think with that schedule, got a couple weapons. I think 8 wins is definitely in the picture. I think that's where they're going to be at.
How do they win at Temple? How does that happen? How do they get past that?
Witchcraft.
Temple might honestly have one of the, I'm not going to say top 5, but a top 10 defense in the country. That's going to be a tough game. I think that's probably their other loss.
At Temple, November 7th, on a Friday, so you know it's big on ESPNU. A primetime spot there. They pushed back the UCLA volleyball game so you could have Memphis at Temple. The rivalry renewed yet again.
Let's all
hide the women and children.
Let's all mark this down, whatever day it is, right before, 29th or whatever it is. Mark this down, and when Memphis wins their 8th game, let's all make fun of Kriens because he thinks I'm completely batshit crazy right now.
I'll go 5-7, 5-7, maybe 6-6. Bowl game, we're tippy-toppy on the bowl game, and if they do go to a bowl game, don't have it at their home stadium because that's horseshit.
Agreed.
We got to mention the Cox because the Cox blew their load yet again. Copyright, Mr. Schottenkirk. Charlie, how disappointed are you in the team of the lounge this season to lose to Missouri here at home in a 21-20 last-second score? They're done. They're done.
I'm not going to say 100% done. I'll say 99.6% done because I don't think anyone in the SEC East is all that great. I think there's probably 5 or 6 pretty good SEC teams, and they all reside in the West Division. I think whoever wins the East could end up being 5-3. But yeah, all that said, not a great start for Kriens' and I's South Carolina Gamecocks, and they're probably going to have to play in the Outback Sports Bowl on January 1st and beat, I don't know, maybe they'll play Minnesota then. The only entertaining thing about South Carolina this year has been Steve Spurrier saying ridiculous things all season long.
He is entertaining. Mr. Stacken, who is your number one team in the country up until this point here?
I would probably have to keep Florida State there at the top. Oregon, Oklahoma, and Alabama probably follow suit.
Does anybody else here think that Florida State is the best team in the country?
Nope.
I do not know why Florida State is the ranked number one. I guess it's that Charlie will say the Ric Flair beat the man, be the man. Nobody's beaten them, so I guess by Murphy's Law says unless you lose, you cannot fall from the ranks of number one. I think Oregon's better. I think Alabama is better. Auburn, maybe. But I think there are a handful of teams that have been better than Florida State, because Florida State, they've not looked impressive really in any game for the entire game against a good team. So no team since Nebraska in the mid-'90s in the last 40 years have gone back-to-back seasons undefeated. So I don't think Florida State's going to go undefeated. They were very fortunate to win that game yesterday. So
How many first rounders on that Florida State team though?
17.
And they're starting 11 on both sides. I think as far as draft picks,
at some point, not next year, but at some point in their career.
Some point, offensive starting 11, defense starting 11. There's probably 14 guys that are in the NFL off their starting 20. That seems high, but you go look at the depth chart and go look at the prospects. There's honestly, I've got 12 on the top of my head, and there's one or two I'm sure I know I'm missing on the defensive side. It's probably 14 guys in the NFL someday.
And I don't think anybody's disputing that Florida State's not talented. It's just that it's so tough to win 2 years in a row. It's like why whenever you're watching a major in golf, that when someone shoots a 63, they almost never follow it up with the 63 again. It's just you can't. And Florida State last year was probably one of the 3 best teams of the last 20 years. And I think they're still good. They're just not getting the same breaks they did, and they've got a target on their back, and it's tough to play that well 2 years in a row. And I think Alabama and Oklahoma have seemed like the 2 best teams in the country to me this year.
I think Oregon's win over Michigan State is probably still the most impressive win all year so far.
I would
agree
agree
with that too.
You got Darby and Williams, 2 cornerbacks that are likely first-round picks, and I'm sure Shithead Winston will go in the first round. So good luck to that team, whoever picks that jack off up. As Charlie mentioned, yes. As Charlie mentioned, big-time games next week, LSU, Auburn. LSU, you disappointed me greatly 8 days ago. Stanford, Notre Dame, that'll be a good game. That might knock somebody out there, especially if Stanford gets their second loss. They're done for national title hopes. A&M at Mississippi State. A&M struggled against a decent Arkansas team. Oklahoma at TCU, I'm waiting for that Oklahoma upset. So
I'm calling it again. Well, sometime this year I'll get it right, but I'm calling that TCU will beat Oklahoma in Fort Worth this week.
Count me in on that as well. And Ole Miss, you want to prove something to me, Ole Miss? Beat the fuck out of Alabama.
College game day, the greatest time ever in history.
Unbelievable.
There you go.
They will not beat Alabama.
No, they won't. That's going to be a one-possession game, though, late.
It will
That's
not
fine with
be.
me.
I disagree. I hope it is. That'd be great. I hope they do beat Alabama, but I don't have any faith in Bo Wallace out of Ole Miss.
You also have.
I thought game day was going to be in Normal, Illinois for Jack's Illinois State.
Well, if Ole Miss wouldn't have won, they would have. But Ole Miss won.
Oh, okay.
SDSU needed to beat Missouri to lock that up, but they couldn't do it.
See,
thanks a lot, Sumner.
Assholes. Damn you. Nebraska at Michigan State. This looks like a beatdown of epic proportions. The line's -8.5. I see this going up to 10, 10.5, 11. How is this an 8 line right now? Nebraska at Michigan State.
Abdullah.
No, I'm sorry.
I would say it's because Nebraska's undefeated and they've scored like 31 points and had 500 yards every game. I don't think Nebraska's going to win. I think Michigan State's going to win, but Michigan State's only beat Nebraska once, ever. I think Michigan State will win like 31-21. I don't think that they're going to explode and go crazy because I don't think Michigan State scored a lot of points against any really good defenses this year, other than a couple of drives against Oregon. But certainly Nebraska is not going to rush for 450 yards like they have the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Mr. Schottenkirk, what do you think about this 8-point line here?
Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable to me. I would tend to agree that it probably will bump up to 9.5 towards the end of the week. As far as the game's concerned, I will, no matter what the number is, Michigan State's the bet for anybody that's on that. Nebraska, obviously they're really good against a shit Illinois team last night. Beat Miami pretty good. Miami came back this week and beat Duke, which is a good win for them. But Nebraska beat Fresno, McNeese State, Illinois, and Miami. They haven't played anybody close to what Michigan State's going to bring, much less at Michigan State. I think that's probably a 2-touchdown game. If Abdullah, for me, he's putting up gaudy numbers right now, which is good because he's one of those guys that you're getting into October, he's going to be a so-called Heisman contender. But I see that falling off. The schedule's not really that difficult. Obviously, Big Ten is way down. But if he puts up another big game and Nebraska somehow wins next week, he's going to be in the top 3 or 4 guys for the Heisman all of a sudden. That said, if I would take a guess here, I think he finishes with less than probably say 80 yards in that game. Anything over 80 would be kind of surprising for me because they're gonna focus on him, make Armstrong beat him, and I don't think he can.
That's what Michigan State tried last year, and Abdullah had about 140 rushing yards. I think Abdullah still goes over 100, but I think Michigan State's going to win. And in terms of what you said about Nebraska not playing any good teams, I'm not going to dispute that. Michigan State hasn't looked good against anyone not named Oregon in the second half, though.
Correct. You look at the first half of the game, I know it got out and late. Oregon for me is probably the best team in the country, and going out there, the first true road game of the year, looking good for the first half. Yeah, they got ran out, their doors blown off in the second half, but ever since they haven't played anybody. Michigan State, I'm talking about, they've destroyed everyone that's put in front of them. They understand now that their Big Ten is theirs to lose. I just don't see, and who else is going to on Nebraska? Who else is going to beat them? I just think they put 8 in the box. If Armstrong beats him, he beats him. I would be stunned if that deal had another big game.
Mr. Amon.
No, go ahead.
No, Charlie Hildebrand.
I was just going to say that I think Michigan State's defense was better last year than this year, and Abdullah ran for like 130 yards. So I'm not saying he can't get stopped. Certainly, I agree with what you're saying that I would put 9 guys in the box and force Tommy Noarb to throw it 50 yards away from a receiver every play because he's not accurate. But we'll see what they do.
Yep.
Mr. Amon, explain your college pick'em thus far this year. I am 5th, tied for 5th with Traxler, and you are 7th, 1 point behind. Your thoughts? Last couple weeks have been rough for everybody. What are your thoughts on the college pick'em here so far?
I don't know why it's so difficult. We're picking straight up, and it seems like a lot of these games, teams that are 10-point favorites are just flat out losing. What is going on?
I think last year was the thing. Looking at the last year's standings, I took a look probably a week or two already or whatever. But I finished up in like the 99.5 percentile, and this year the top of our group is nowhere near that. We're all kind of in that middle range of the 70th percentile or whatever, 75. And I think like Drew said, those teams that are massive favorites, they're losing. And if you put 6, 7, 8 points on them, which we all consistently have had losses there, it really adds up. And usually my target is to average 40 points a week throughout the entire year. And right now I'm nowhere near that. And somehow I'm still in second or third or whatever it is. So I'm quite pleased because I'm off to a shitty start for myself. But we'll see how it goes.
We've done this for 3 or 4 years, and it seems like this has been by far the most difficult of all the years through 5 weeks at least.
Dan Beck in first, a surprising candidate in first place.
Dan Beck is running away with it.
Alex Bays, he declined to participate due to religious obligations. So I don't know if Mr. Amon can speak to those. You know him better than
I
me.
don't have. I really don't know a lot about his religious.
Dalliances?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Didn't know he had any.
Me neither. So, Mr. Stacken, you missed a week, yet Mr. Rogenkamp is in your sights, who also missed a week. But that was 2 weeks ago when everybody did shitty. You are 18 points back. Do you feel you can catch Mr. Rogenkamp without him missing a week?
Probably not. I'm doing really bad. I don't really want to discuss this. This has been
If it makes you feel any better, everybody's doing bad stacking. You got to just keep plugging away. Find that 50-point week at the right time.
tried. I only missed what I think. I missed 4 or 5 games this week, and only one of them was a high point one. I put South Carolina at 9. That really did not help my cause at all.
Well, and I know Kriens mentioned the game earlier. I would imagine every ranked game between 2 ranked teams will be on there. So certainly this could be a week where if you play your cards right, you could get 48 or 50, or there could be a whole bunch of people finishing in the 20s. There's a couple upsets.
Yep.
Mr. Stacken, do you want to say goodbye as we talk NFL? Do you know anything about the NFL? Spill your guts of what you know.
You know what? I said I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I will. I said that the Bucs were going to give the Steelers a pretty difficult test this week. I did not expect them to win in the fashion that they did, but kudos to that win. I stupidly enough took the Oakland Raiders to beat the Dolphins. That was an absolute atrocity today overseas there in London. Dennis Allen is as good as gone in my book. I don't know what the hell he was doing. And the Packers, Aaron Rodgers told Packers fans to relax. He certainly gave them reason to, but the Bears have absolutely no defense, and that's ultimately what's going to hold them back from winning the division. I still like them to get a wild card berth. But other than that, I do not know anything else. I'm going to go watch the Saints and Cowboys for my fantasy teams, which I desperately need.
You have no
and
chance.
then I will watch the Vikings game. No chance against you. I have Tony Romo going tonight.
What do I
no.
have here?
Hey, stack real quick.
That proves it.
Real quick, you're down by probably 10 or 15. You have Romo tonight. I have Robinson and Colston, and then tomorrow I have Edelman and somebody else. So you're screwed.
You have Edelman and Gronkowski tomorrow.
Yeah, you're screwed.
I know it's very. However, I would like to say that I got a much-needed win last week. I lost temporarily to Marcus's dad or brother or whoever Evan is, but ESPN updated the scores, gave me 2 extra points, so I got the win. So I'm okay losing this week, knowing that I will just fall back to 500. So thanks ESPN for fucking.
Yeah, I'm sure they're watching, and they appreciate your kind words.
Profanity, my goodness.
Is there anyone besides me that wishes Al Davis wasn't dead so we could see Dennis get fired in a foreign country and not be able to get on the plane to fly back and see if he can make his way back to the United States?
It would be nice, that's for sure.
He would. Hey, if you want to coach, you got to swim back all the way across the ocean. Yeah. If you make it, you're still our coach. If you die, who cares?
Here's an inflatable raft and a peg leg. You can use that.
Mr. Traxler's Jacksonville Pool Cabanas put up a bullshit effort this week. What a horseshit team he put out there. The likes of Ahmad Bradshaw, C.J. Spiller from a shit school like Clemson, the likes of Zach Ertz and Alex Smith. When Alex Smith, you got to play him because Manning's on a bye. You're going to get your ass handed to you because I started such stars as Doug Martin, who had multiple yards on multiple carries. I also had such stars as Charles Clay and Ryan Fitzpatrick. So obviously, my lineup's superior to his, and we'll see you in the playoffs, Mr. Traxler. So a good job there.
I'll sign off. We hope to have the sports block come back this week if the KSDJ will get their shit together and have that studio ready.
Contract disputes. There are contract disputes between the block and the KSDJ offices. So
get Charlie Weiss's agent stack in.
I know. Well, you know what? He's got a lot of free time on his hand right now, so I think I'll give him a buzz.
buy him some of that pizza downstairs in the basement, and
Moved. I don't know where they moved to. Papa John's moved somewhere else. There's nothing down there anymore.
Schottenkirk, you have something to do with this?
Unfortunately, no. I couldn't tell you why they folded up, but that is interesting.
I believe they're moving upstairs somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Get a better location, more people, just in case. 95% of people know they're down there, but those 5%. Oh, look, Papa John's. I had no idea they were here on campus. So those idiots.
Screw them. There you go.
Yeah.
So
we'll see you all next week.
Enjoy Teddy Bridgewater's torn ACL. So enjoy that.
Broken ankle.
And Mike Zimmer punching Matt Ryan in the face.
That was fun too. Very good. As he mentioned, Tampa Bay beat Pittsburgh. Mr. Amon, what happened to this Tampa Bay squad? Did you see this game? Mike Glennon, a poor first half, a good second half. Where did this come from?
We learned one thing, I think, from that game. Pittsburgh's not good. Now, we know that for sure. Because there was no way Tampa Bay should have won that game. There was one Roethlisberger should have thrown for about 445 yards, but there were 3 open field drops. Antonio Brown dropped what would have been like a 65-yard touchdown, what would have been his 3rd touchdown of the game. Pittsburgh is not good. That's the one thing I drew from that game. Tampa Bay's secondary is going to be, again, historically one of the worst in the past 25 years. So we didn't learn a lot. Pittsburgh's mediocre. That's what we learned.
What about Doug Martin? He was hurt.
I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know. His offensive line is still pretty much average. It doesn't seem like his vision has gone downhill. I don't know what's going on with him. Maybe it's because it's like a new system.
Does he have?
I don't know what's going on.
Does he have cataracts?
I don't know. He might.
It's never too early to get that checked out. So maybe you should do that. Charlie, did you see your Dolphins today?
I saw some of it. With Tannehill playing better, if the NFL was like baseball, I'd give Tannehill a WAR of about .01. He's slightly better than a replacement player.
The Vikings looked tremendous. Their offense, for the first time all year, looked good. That probably wasn't because they switched quarterbacks. That probably can't be the reason.
Never.
19 for 30, 317 yards. Teddy Bridgewater did not throw for a touchdown, but he did run for a touchdown, and he was out there the last 2 drives, midway portion of the 4th quarter with a sprained left ankle. They play Thursday at Green Bay. We'll see what happens with him tomorrow, but boy, are we fucking close to Christian Ponder making a start again, which is not good.
How'd you like his appearance today? I'm sure you were throwing things around your...
The 12 times he handed it off, I thought it was good. I'd give him a B+. He dropped that one snap, but I guess that was on the center for snapping it early when nobody was ready. I would be in favor of running the ball approximately 55 times on Thursday night and taking a knee in passing situations. So I would hope Teddy Bridgewater will be better in 5 hours when that game starts at Green Bay. And hey, Jerick McKinnon, 18 carries, 135 yards. Wow, another running back. Who the hell would have thought? Asiata had his normal 20 carries, 3-yard average for 3 touchdowns. And Jarius Wright, they figured, hey, you might as well use him because he's on the team. What do you make of that Vikings offense? Because Teddy Bridgewater looked outstanding.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway was it was amazing to see what the hell could happen if the offensive line played well. Khalil played probably his best game of the year. It still wasn't great in my opinion. Bridgewater was able to elude pressure a few times and make some plays with his feet, still get it downfield. McKinnon, we've been begging for him in a lot of ways for a few weeks already. Seeing that him bust out like that was nice. Asiata is what he is. Jarius Wright out of nowhere. Maybe that's Teddy's new favorite connection, but he had a big game today. Cordero still with a few plays later in the game. I think this might be fool's gold, though. I think that's a game. I picked Atlanta to win. I picked them to cover the whole bit, but you've been on it. Atlanta's a shit road team. They proved once again to that extent. I'm very anxious to see what they do Thursday night. I think that's going to say a lot more of what the rest of the season is going to be like. I think a win is a win in this league. We've all said that. We all know that. But I think people, I can just about imagine what fan line was going off with Teddy, jerking him off, figuratively speaking. But it's one of those things where it's overreaction every, as soon as the game's over until Tuesday or Wednesday next week, people make such a big deal of it. Let's see it play out for a few weeks. I think ultimately Teddy's, going to be pretty good, but I still don't think they're going to win more than 6 or 7 games this year. I really don't.
I think they're an 8 or 9 win team. New England, I thought they would give New England a better game than they did. And if that blocked field goal doesn't happen, you make that, it's a 3-point game at the half.
Yep.
Instead of a 17-point game, whatever it was. 2-2, I thought they'd beat Atlanta, 2-2. They play Detroit in 2 weeks. They beat Detroit. They own Detroit at home. Green Bay probably wins, but I want to see how that ends up. Then you go on the road at Buffalo, at Tampa Bay. If you're any team worth the shit, you beat both those teams. You come home to Washington. So, yes, absolutely. Then you play Washington at home before your bye week in Week 10. You add that up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 and 3. I think 6 and 3 is more than
best.
5 and 4 probably, but 6 and 3 is attainable here. So playoffs and that Central and that North Division. I mean, that's anybody wants to take that. 10 wins probably gets it. 9 wins maybe with a tiebreaker. So Teddy Bridgewater, that was fun to see. And, of course, he had to get hurt. But, boy, that was...
Atlanta's defense is really not good.
Tampa Bay, they did not play... I mean, they tore him up.
Would you give Bridgewater an A performance? I mean, you give him certainly a B+ or so. But, he was very good. Give him a lot of credit.
I know we talk about a lot of things in the chat, and a lot of things I forget how much we talk about. But we had one thing we were talking about if Christian Ponder would ever start another game for the Vikings. Because unfortunately, that is very much in play right now.
I don't think
the reasons you would want, but
the ankle was bad enough he had to come out. Maybe if it's a game where they're down a score, or it's a 2-3 possession game here where they may have to pass, he stays in. But and it does suck, these goddamn Thursday games, which are just you got to get rid of them. They're not going to because of the money they're getting paid, but you got to get rid of them. It's ridiculous playing 3-4 days later after a game. So I would hope that he's good enough. So that's a big part of their success. Almost 41 points, best they've looked since that Philadelphia game last year late in the season. But other than that, rare is the day where this offense puts up 40 points.
And real quick, I got to get going here in a few minutes. But
yes.
How about the Cowboys? I know they're 2-1. They're playing pretty well right now. I had them winning 4 games the whole year. I thought it was going to go south. They're just running the ball like they should have the last couple of years. Murray's been a beast. Tyron Smith might be the best left tackle in the league, and he's only 23, 24 years old. It's amazing what happens when they have competent play calling because they look phenomenal in the first quarter again tonight.
They run the ball to get up by 2 touchdowns. They pass the ball to protect the lead, and they lose by 3, 38-35. So
they do have a really good offensive line because they've spent $1 billion on that.
Yeah.
They're going to have one of the 3-4 worst defenses, I think, by the time the end of the season comes around. I don't know. Romo's and then the running game. Yeah, they've looked better than I expected, but
way better.
I don't think it's a playoff.
They're 8, unless they prove me wrong. 8-8, boys. 8-8. 8-8. And on a side note, with the Vikings defense, I'm very impressed and really love this Vikings defense. If you just look at it, 28 points, they almost gave up 30 points. But if you watch that game, I was really impressed with the Viking defense all season long. And there's no team in the NFC, as long as this defense plays the way it is, that I'm afraid of if I'm the Vikings. You know, you want to play Green Bay, let's play, let's see what happens. You want to play Chicago, let's go. You know, I don't know if this is just dumb as hell, but there's no team that I see, boy, you know, they're just going to get their asses kicked. As long as this defense plays the way they do, and as long as Bridgewater can continue to improve on this, there's no team that I'm deathly afraid of, where I'm like, well, they have absolutely no chance.
Yeah, and to be able, just the ability to say that a year removed from what we saw last season is just insane to me. Is that you're right? There is nobody. You go up and down the list. You saw what we did in New Orleans last week. They really didn't dominate like they have in the past. You look at a team like Seattle, not exactly offensive firepower. Arizona, even Chicago in the division. Chicago's the one team that probably could present the most problems and would scare me a little bit with the weapons on the outside. But you still have the Jay Cutler factor, and he'll find a way to bungle it in the end. Green Bay this next week, we'll see. But there is a lot of reason to be, excited. But I'm tempering my expectations. Like I said, they've looked good. There's still some pretty big flaws. I'm not convinced Teddy's going to be as good as he was today the rest of the season. Obviously, Atlanta's defense, like Drue said, not the greatest. There's no really great defenses in our division, so maybe you're right. We could somehow be 7, 8, 9 wins and be knocking on the door in the playoffs, which would make sense because every time you expect the team to be bad, they're good, and vice versa. But we'll see. On that note, you guys have a good rest of the show. I got to take off.
Very good.
Yeah.
Before we forget, I want to mention one of the best hitters. One of the best hitters of the last 10, 15 years called it quits today. A World Series champion, multiple-time All-Star, Paul Konerko called it quits. A lot has been made about Paul Konerko. Not a Hall of Famer, but as we've mentioned, probably in that next tier outside of the Hall of Fame, 430-some home runs.
Pretty good.
Yeah, a guy that had a lot of productive years. Mr. Amon, how would you characterize the career of Paul Konerko?
Oh, pretty good. I mean, I guess I don't really. I think he was a pretty good. I think he was a pretty good player. Well, I think he was a very good player. Is he in the Hall of very good? I don't really know. He was never really a standout.
As far as first baseman,
not really much
type,
of a
but as far as a hitter,
yeah, I mean he has some really nice numbers. I think he really added up some pretty nice career numbers. Like 440 home runs. That's good. He'll get some votes, but I don't think he'll be particularly close, and I don't think people expect him to get very close to the Hall of Fame. But I mean he was good. I mean he was a big part of their 05 World Series. I mean that says a lot. He had a couple of good years in his late 30s. That doesn't happen to people when they're not putting steroids into their body.
It was
give him some credit. He had a really good career.
He came just short of joining that elusive group over 400 home runs and double-digit stolen bases, so he was one stolen base shy of that elusive 410 group. So if only, I mean, you get on base, you just got to send him just to get that 10th stolen base. So that was disappointing that he didn't get to see that. Jeter, I don't know if you've heard, but apparently he retired today. It kind of came out of the blue. There wasn't a lot of build-up.
I didn't even know Derek Jeter was retiring this year.
I thought he had another couple years in him, so I was kind of surprised he decided to call it quits today. And he didn't have this wasn't a huge build-up. It's not like each team gave him a little something on his way out. So that was interesting. People are crying, Charlie. People are crying because this man will never play baseball again. It was a nice moment. Got the game-winning hit there a couple nights ago. Was it necessary for people to cry for this man?
I would say no, but tradition-rich sports teams, whether it's college or pro, if you're a big city and you're good traditionally, people go crazy over them. And you can say all sorts of things about what Derek Jeter would be like if he played in a different spot, and they're probably all true. But if you're the shortstop for the Yankees and you play for a long time, you're a pretty good hitter, and you win, I don't know how many World Series he won, 4 or 5 or whatever. People are going to love you forever, and he was a guy that played his cards right in New York, too.
Is there a player whose retirement hit you hard? Or like, oh, no, not this guy? The Dan Marino, was that a big deal? Or it was like, well, you're not
I was in middle school or high school or whatever, and I was sad he was retiring, but I thought they'd be okay. Obviously, that was not true. They're still trying to find a quarterback to replace him. But
Marino's last game was, I think that was like a 60-0 loss in the playoffs.
The Jaguars.
62-7. That was not good. I do remember I was in the 6th grade at the time, and there were rumors Dan Marino's going to come to the Vikings, and they were talking, and I'm like, oh, Marino to the Vikings, and that never happened. That was probably a good idea that never did happen, so that was fine with me. They went with Jeff George instead, and that worked out, so that was good to see.
I don't know. If I have to pick anybody retiring and it being strange, I guess like a lot of people our age, I'd probably go with Michael Jordan.
Yes.
Or when he retired, and it's like, oh, is this going to be as entertaining to watch basketball without Michael Jordan around, even when he's 40 and occasionally only scores 6 points?
The second time, or the third time?
I don't know. I just remember every time he only scored like 7 points, he turned around and scored 40 or 50 the next game.
The thing about it is he was 40 years old. He still averaged 20 points a game as a 40-year-old. It's not that he could not play anymore. It was that his body, his knees, whatever, he just could not, he could not play back-to-back games or 3 games in 4 days. It was he could still play. You could probably put him on the bench, and he could probably play 50 games a year and still average 20 points a game. But he could not do that, every single game. Any player retire, Amon, that you thought, well, this is like a Derek Brooks or a Denny Hawking, where you were like, man, this is terrible.
Yeah, I really thought Matthew LeCroy's career was cut pretty short. But other than that, I don't have any. I don't know, that type of stuff doesn't really.
How about when Mauer
register?
How about when Mauer says I'm done? Is there anybody coming up where you're like, Mauer, he had a great career, a Hall of Fame career, when?
I guess that would be something. I don't know. He would be the closest where I'd be like, oh, that it really sucks that he's not playing baseball anymore, but not many.
I guess I'll say also, as a fair weather White Sox fan, if Frank Thomas played his whole career with the White Sox, I would have felt a little different when he retired. But obviously, he played for multiple different teams, so when he retired, I was not overly sad about it. Because almost nobody plays for the same team their whole career almost ever anymore.
Will it be a sad day when Sackett leaves the KSDJ family? Will that be similar?
I don't know what they're going to do in the basement of the Union. They'll have to have a candlelight vigil.
Those are some big hands to fill. I'll give them that. As we wrap it up.
Give me that clock off the wall.
Huh? The clock. Clint, Sergeant, look at this.
Get the clock. Pick it up.
Boom. I could palm your kit. As we wrap it up, the 85th edition. 30 for 30, the best thing that ESPN's done in quite some time, and I'll give the suspended Bill Simmons all the credit for this idea. So another round of 30 for 30s coming here, October 7th, so a couple weeks away. What do we got here? Something Northeast basketball, a point-shaving scandal for Boston College, which I don't know much about, so that'll be interesting. But do any of these new 30 for 30s? Do you usually watch these? Anything here? We got one about the '89 World Series with the earthquake. We've got the 1970s Knicks. We got one with Brian Bosworth and Barry Switzer. We have one with the Cuban players, so I will definitely watch Puig and crew there. We have one with Randy Moss.
I know that I think the Bosworth one will be kind of interesting, but supposedly they're doing another one on the U, Miami, after where they've left off before, and I thought that was maybe my favorite of all of them they've done so far, period. They've had 4 or 5 really good ones, I think that was one of them, and I'm interested to watch that, especially because most of the stuff they showed in the first one, I was either not alive or was like 3, or the stuff they'll show now, it'll be like, oh yeah, I was like 14, and I kind of remember that, and I think that'll be interesting.
That is your big one after the Heisman. They always have a big one after the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, I'm excited for that Hurricane.
This will pick up what their second big run there, late 90s, early 2000s, and the recent troubles they've had. The first one was produced 5 years ago already, which seems like a long time ago. Yeah, 2009. So that first one was like an hour and a half, 2 hours long, so that was really good. Randy Moss, definitely greatest player I've ever seen. Any of those other ones are you interested in?
Kind of interested in the Earthquake World Series one.
Yes.
I think because Oakland was really good for like 5 or 6 years, and that was the only World Series they won, right?
Yes.
I think that one might be fun.
Bill Simmons, since 30 for 30 was his idea, and he's now suspended. Was that suspension just? Or was that the right call? 3 weeks, no Twitter, no nothing.
I don't know. I mean,
doesn't matter.
Simmons, I think, pretty obviously wanted to draw a little bit of attention to himself. So it's whatever. It's going to end up helping Simmons' popularity kind of.
Do you expect Bill Simmons to be there next year? His contract is coming up here. Mr. Hildebrand.
That's a good question. I think I don't know. I could be wrong. I get a sense that he's probably going to try to change some stuff and keep his behavior good and stay there because he's been at ESPN for so long, which means I'm probably wrong and he'll go join Dan Patrick or something.
Ooh.
But my guess would be is that he'll try to at least somewhat call him. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, we don't know all the stuff that was going on with it. I could be wrong. My guess is he got in more trouble for him daring ESPN to suspend them as opposed to the calling out Goodell. I think if he would have just called, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think if he would just called out Goodell, he would have probably been reprimanded for it, maybe even publicly, but not suspended. But I think with most people, if you start daring your employer to suspend you or fire you, that it frequently will not go the way you want it to. But like Drue said, maybe he knew this was going to happen and he's doing it on purpose because he wants to get more popularity and clicks on Reddit. And I don't know.
It seemed more choreographed the more I thought about it. So.
Is he a sort of guy that can go out on his own and do something with a website, or does he have enough? Does he have enough artillery there to be a viable option by himself?
Yeah, easily, yeah.
Justin Morneau won the batting title. Not Hicks, of course, haha. Revere was 5th, Span was 6th. Do you get any joy out of former Twins winning batting titles for the 2nd year in a row? Michael Kadire won it last year. Morneau wins it this year. And is there any reason to think that he would have come anywhere close to this had he stayed?
Well, you're talking about him playing half of his home games at Coors Field. That helps quite a bit. I'm not surprised that Morneau has his career sort of revived. I just think his body was just in a really rough way for about 3 years, and it just took a long time for that to sort of clear out. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see that he did well.
That concussion in Toronto, I tell you what, boys. That's that'll do you.
What?
That'll do you.
You did.
Sports Jeopardy. Dan Patrick's doing a Sports Jeopardy. First episode came out earlier this week. Does that interest you at all? Would you watch that? How do you think you would do? The questions I watched the first episode. They were not difficult whatsoever.
I did not know they had one of these. I would probably watch one. I do know I've got like an old Sports Jeopardy game for Super Nintendo or something.
Ooh.
And I can say, if you play like a game where the questions are all like at least 20 years old, it is all borderline impossible to do well in. Where it's like, oh, who leads the world in home runs? And it's like, oh, wait, nope, that's changed since this game was made. And there's so many things, it's like, oh, nope, that is not correct anymore.
That is very difficult. Mr. Alman, how would you do on Sports Jeopardy?
I don't know. I think I could win unless, you know, the sports lounge trivia games or whatever are usually pretty competitive. If I was on a panel and it's you or it's Traxler,
Schottenkirk. Schottenkirk's the guy.
I think all of you guys. It wouldn't be a given. I probably wouldn't win actually, but maybe if I would rather take my chances with a couple dudes that I don't know.
Yeah. It looks to me like the biggest thing is not knowing the answer. It's using Jesus Christ. This guy just got hit on the football game here. It looks like the key thing is ringing in with the buzzer and not locking yourself out. So apparently, if you push it before you are supposed to, you are locked out and you cannot answer or ring in. So I feel that would be the most important thing, is getting that down. Which, good or bad, it's probably the biggest thing coming up here. So we appreciate Mr. Schottenkirk giving us some time. Mr. Stacken, the wife has got him down now. So he'll have to tape all of his football games and drive 6 hours every weekend. So we'll see how that works. Good game by the Vikings. Good college football weekend coming up. Didn't have a lot of college football coming up this past Saturday. So it'll be good to see some good games for once. It's been a couple of barren weeks. And the baseball playoffs, Amin. These look like good playoffs. Will these live up to the expectations? These look, you got
Absolutely.
Kershaw. You got a good, St. Louis Dodgers first-round series. See if Washington can finally do something here after years of lofty expectations. The Angels have met expectations, and you have Pittsburgh making another run, and Kansas City for the first time since any of us have been born. So plenty of storylines. So we appreciate everybody's involvement in the lounge. And since Traxler is not here, I'll go to Charlie Hildebrand. Where will we have the show next week?
Inside the sports lounge.
Very good. Do an RV.
We're looking for a Michigan man to help us with it.
Jacob Dreyer, is he a Michigan man?
I could be. I have no idea.
All right, we'll look for a Michigan man next time. 86th edition of the Lounge next week. It's October. It's getting cold out.